Hello, everybody. So, get started in probably the easiest way possible, just by explaining what I'm doing here, what this is. So, hello, Star. Hello, Wopnik. Thank you for joining in. So, new segment new and not new at the same time, but I'll cover that in a sec. So, what we're doing here, and what I'm probably going to make a regular Wednesday thing as much as possible, is a segment where I sit down and I chat with everybody. I was trying to make like a regular podcast show type thing, and not necessarily sure that is working. However, I might bring it that way in a little bit. We'll see. I'm going to see how this works, how this feels, and we'll go from there. Otherwise, welcome to TDF Talks, the somewhat cool, then failed, then cool again segment that I've been working on for quite some time. Thank you, Anchor, for making that not work for me for a short time. But I will come back to you if I feel like doing the work. But yeah, so today on the list of things, making stream music work. Turns out that there's a wide array of playlists that are available that won't get me DMCA'd. That's good. And also getting this set up. So things have been productive. I've been working with magic cards today, and the main reason being is, not working, so I gotta find a way to kind of monetarily contribute somehow. And I'm on my third deck now of kind of breaking down and seeing what has value and what I can trade in. Things weren't looking so great. I'm on my third deck now, and I think I may have just saved Christmas. In a manner of speaking. So that's good news. So we're gonna spend some time just chilling, getting this done. It is really hard to tell if the stream is frozen on my iPad or not, because it's not showing my cam. But yeah, so hopefully everybody's having a good day. Over here, it is cold and it is blustery outside and it is gray. You'd almost think it was still winter out here or something. Windsor's really kind of dragging out that in-between winter and spring weather. Oh yeah, no, I already looked this up. Where is it? I still can't get over the fact that that's worth as much as it is. Alright, so this big old stack will go over here. We'll go over here like this. That deck is done. Actually, technically I've gone through 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, alright. So that was my 4th just then. So yeah. If anybody wanted to have anything to say in the chat, now would be a wonderful time. I do have subjects to sprinkle through, because I do want to, extend this into as long as possible, so I will have some stuff. Just wanted to leave the first little bit as just kind of a chat and see what happens. I will be right back. I'm just going to grab another few decks. Talk about this thing. This has been a while since I've... Oh, that's not really that well glued in there, is it? Right, so this thing was one of the first things that Star ever got me. It is a custom-made deck box. And, I know I gushed about this before, but I'm going to do it every single time I have a chance. This is a solid wood. It's not completely formed, but it is made of several pieces, but it is still solid wood. Solid wood deck box that has spots for 3 decks. As shown here, you can't really see it, but 3 decks, and it has one of these set symbols for one of my favorite color combinations on there. And it's got like little latches on the side. Like, this thing is so badass. And oh man, this is like an example of a priceless gift. Sincerely, it is so good. I love it so much. Maybe no. So yeah, I've just been going through old Magic decks and trying to see if I can find something of value. And I thought for a while that I thought I'd done this so much that I was kind of stuck. But I guess the majority of my decks I had left alone. Or, well, the ones that I regularly play, but seeing as I don't play Commander as much anymore, having 10 decks is probably not exactly a good idea. So yeah, just kind of going through stuff here, and I hope that all the decks that I'm going through going forward are going to be just as successful as the last one was. I kind of doubt it. I think there's going to be 1 card in here, maybe 2, that'll be super high valuable. Probably, like, I think I have Kozilek in here, but we shall see. But I've been doing this for about an hour now, and I'm not feeling too terrible about it. I thought the card that was super high valuable, oh, there's like a whole bunch of them, huh? The last deck that I went through had like 3 cards that were, I mean, again, inaccurately represented because it's in US dollars, but it was like $30-$40, like 3 of them in the last deck. And one of them I managed to get like at a, I don't want to say a discount, but I got it while it was still cheap, so like good times. And again, we don't know if anybody in town is going to take them, but you never know, right? And usually if they're high value, it either means that they're valuable in terms of them being actual good cards, or they're rare, rare printings, or they're just really nice cards. There's a few reasons. There's also, artificially inflated prices because of investors and what have you. There's always like a multitude of reasons. Usually it's pretty obvious, but we shall see. Yeah, let's remove from this list. Hopefully everybody enjoys the music that's playing right now. If it gets to be too much, or if you don't like it, just let me know and I'll try and switch it. But I'm trying to keep it so, I have music while I'm chatting and it doesn't get me banned. So yeah. Oh, let's see here. Let's put this where it was before. So yeah, I figure I'll give the stream about a half an hour, and then of being up rather. Actually, I might even go a little bit longer. I'm gonna try and get these decks done through, and then we'll see. Consuming Aberration for $1.50. That's not terrible. I'm not taking it in for $1.50, but still not nothing. That is junk, and I kind of knew it, but you never know. What? Oh, guild kit. Okay, yeah. Set symbol looked weird. Okay. Jesus. Mind Seeker. So it's breaking apart, I think, a mill deck that I had going on. I must have taken Kozilek out of this a while ago, because I didn't see it. And I could have sworn my mill deck had Kozilek in it. A little bit. I mean, it's expected. It's a valuable card. When I got it at $20, I think. And when I last looked at it, I'm pretty sure it sold for about, I want to say, 40. So it was an easy way to get into something. So I would imagine that's the last time I sold cards. It was like, yeah, I'm going right for that. Okay, this is probably worth nothing as well. This is a guild kit card as well. Yeah, it's probably worth nothing. Yeah, it's not totally nothing. Devastation Tide is probably... that's what? Oh, that's the original printing. Shit. That's, wow. How the mighty have fallen. Right. Tell me Fleet Swallower is not more than Devastation Tide. That would hurt me. That's Ixalan. It is not. Okay. Temple of Deceit. This is more in line with what I was expecting. That last deck was bonkers. There's so much value in that last deck. It was crazy. Yeah, that's worth nothing. Scavenger Grounds, I'm pretty sure is worth a couple of bucks. From Hour of Devastation is, yeah, actually it's worth a little bit more than a couple of bucks. Alright. Patient Rebuilding. Is not worth anything. Okay. Gifts. Ungiven. I don't think that's going to be worth anything either because it's banned in several formats, but we're looking at Spellbook. Where are you? There you are. Is this foil? Nope. Okay. Let's see what you got. Actually, you know what? I'm going to test something while I'm here. See how the chat fits things. So, while I'm at it, I'm going to post my Discord link. That shows up fairly well by the looks of things, but let's double check. Oh yeah, that looks good too. Okay, moving on. As I get busier, I think, if I get busier, I think I may lean on this intermission layout a lot more often unless I'm playing a game that demands full screen. Yeah, Gifts Ungiven is not worth anything. Avatar of Woe might be worth a little bit. Oh, this has been reprinted a fair bit. Jesus. Alright. Is $2.50. Chancellor of Spires. Sorry, of these spires. Wow. It's really one set. That's still worth nothing. Alright. Dreamborn Muse, which is one of the cards I think might actually have some worth. $2.50. That's less than what I got it for. Thankfully, I traded into that one, I'm pretty sure. Grind Clock from M15. Not worth anything. Folio Fancies is probably not worth anything, but let's find out. Doot. Yeah, not really. Chase Bellerin from the Spellbook. That's not foil. No. Bach80's nothing. I've tried to filter it out so that way cards that are worth less than $2 I just don't bother putting on a list. The people at the store that I would take this to have better things to do with their time than to go through cards that probably won't sell. Original print. Yeah, I got a lot of middling cards here. It's probably why this deck like underperforms like crazy now. Or, well, I say now like I've played Commander in the last year and a half. I think the last time I actually really played was, goodness, Commander Magic. I would say it would have to have been like, what, at least a year and a half, 2 years, somewhere in there. It was like just as the no, not that long, because it was just as the pandemic regulations were wrapping up. It was the last time I really played in those in-house tournament. The problem with playing Paper Magic now is that it was about a year and a half ago. Okay. The problem with playing Magic now for me comes from three places primarily. Around here, me and Star don't really have a whole ton of time to sit down and play a game that requires about an hour, 2 hours of our time. And for me going out, there's a problem. The core group that I used to play Commander with, I don't know if they really get together anymore. Two of the members that I used to hang out with in there, we're, let's just say, at odds. One of them said some really uncool shit, and we nearly came to blows last time me and him were in the same space. So that's no longer a thing, and nobody really went to bat for me when that happened. So I just decided, you know what, screw it. It's not worth the stress. And then the place where I used to, play with randos and things like that, it moved into a completely different space. It went from this big single level like space that had a restaurant attached. Well, sometimes it had a restaurant attached, and it had all kinds of things where you could look at different types of products. So you can look at stuff that was not Magic related if you wanted to. And there was just a lot of floor space for tables so everybody can play at. And I would imagine that, it costs a lot of money to rent that space. Well, they moved into a place that is like legitimately maybe 1/10 of the floor space, and they're in this building, and as an office space or as a space that doesn't require you hauling a lot of stuff, it makes sense, I guess. But not for a game store. There's barely any tables. They can barely fit 2 or 3 tables in the space that they have. And also including all the merchandise. And then if you have a lot of stuff, you have to go up, was it like 2 flights of stairs? And that's if you don't have anything that's a wheelie. Well, in our situation, we've got a kid that is in a stroller. And as it stands right now, the kid may not be coming out of that stroller for a while. Especially not when pandemic regulations were undoing. So it's like, it was just obtuse. And it still is, even if you don't consider the fact that it's in a building, the fact that it's on a 3rd floor or something like that. It's just hard to reach. And then to make it so it's easy for us, we gotta call in advance or call when we get there to have them open the cargo elevator for us. And we still gotta go up a few stairs with a stroller. The bathroom is almost never open up there. And it's just... fuck, man. The CG realm was one of my favorite places to go to. And I used to go to school with one of the guys who owns the joint, and I love the place. I do. I love the staff, but I can't justify going there anymore as it stands, at least for play. To pick stuff up, or in this case to sell cards, I would be more than happy to go in there and do business with them. But there are too many people, and if you're rolling on this and you're part of that crew, feel free to spread this as much as you like. I really don't care. You can't really do as much damage to my reputation amongst them, more than has already been done. But yeah, what was I gonna say? At the end of the day, that condensed space, imagine, if you will, a Magic the Gathering tournament that will have, let's say, 10 people. Those 10 people will all have a backpack. They'll all be buying merchandise. And they'll all want to play in pods. So when I say pod, I mean one person, one across from the other. And they'll need some space because they'll want to lay out a mat. They'll have all kinds of accessories. That's why they brought their backpack. And they'll probably have trade binders. And 2-3 tables that are... they'll fit maybe 2 or 3 of those pods max. Well, maybe a little bit more, maybe 3 or 4. But the whole point is that those 2 or 3 tables barely fit 10 people, and that's on one-on-one Magic. So modern or standard, that does not do well with a multiplayer format like Commander. It's sad. And with that in mind, I can't justify having as many decks as I do now. Okay, I guess that's another card I took a loss on. That sucks. Alright. Not a huge loss, mind you, but, spending a couple of bucks more than I had to, I guess. Alright, next up. Let's see here. This is one I'm gonna hate having to break up, but Legit just pulling stuff that could have value. Or rares or mythics that I just don't know enough about. If I don't know enough about them, there's a possibility I could be surprised. Is that? I doubt that's worth anything. None of the... There's not many money cards in cons, if I remember correctly. Or... Not cons, the Dragons of Tarkir or something. That block of cards. I also don't like the fact that I bought into Arcane Signets when they were relatively expensive and now they're reprinted like crazy. So basically they have like half their value now. Okay, yeah. I'm gonna go through this deck and the next, and then we'll move on to topics because I think I've done enough of this for today, if I'm being honest. And then maybe tonight I'll send in a list and we'll see if they accept it. I don't know, just based on like 2 or 3 of those cards alone, I think they'll be happy to take a look. Not really on the clock or anything like that. I can cut at any time if I really want to, so not a huge deal. Alright, let's see here. Alright, real big stack of cards here. There's a lot of mythics and rares, mostly rares that are not worth anything. We all doing good up here? Alright, yep. It's one of those weird things where like, there's 2 major stores where you can play and buy Magic stuff in where I live. The place I was talking about, which is called the CG Realm, and then another place called Brimstone. And if there's been ever, like, how to put this? If there was ever, like, an analog or, like, a direct comparison of, like, mom and pop shops to, like, the big, like, Walmart type, like, stores, those 2 are probably, like, the easiest to go after in regards to that, because Brimstone is never needed to move, is never needed to really do anything. They've been broken into like something crazy like 3 or 4 times. It was like all in the space of like a few months or something crazy like that. And they've never really needed to change anything. It seems like they make enough money doing what they do. Oh shit, those aren't all foil. That's still okay. Alright, but yeah, they've just kind of always been there, honestly. And then there's CG that seems to kind of flounder with certain things, and I think they got flooded that one time, like when I was first into Magic, or not first into Magic, but first going to CG regularly. That was way back, like maybe 7-8 years, something like that. That hit him pretty hard, if I remember correctly. But yeah, the way that ended up going is that you go to CG, you get the personalized service, you get the you get some of the niche stuff, you get, you know, a lot less of the corporate feel. Their place feels homey. A lot of their clientele are actual hobbyists. But when you go to Brimstone, it's just like very mainstream. A lot of your min-maxers go there. It's not very comforting to be at Brimstone. However, if there's something you're looking for and you're willing to pay a little bit of an extra convenience fee for it, chances are you'll find it. So, yeah. I could always go to Brimstone if I really wanted to play Magic and I was kind of desperate to. I don't know if I'd want to play against the people that I'd find there, just because I would probably lose all the time. But also, it would be... like, it feels very... I don't want to say clicky, but, like, just, everybody knows everybody who plays Magic at Brimstone, it seems. And I don't know, there's just a feeling. That's not worth anything. I'm just gonna... there we go. Is that 21? Yeah. That sucks. That's another card I took a loss on. What it... oh, I misspelled. So yeah, I got a few things on the docket today. Once I get this out of the way. Hopefully some stuff that I can get off my back, because I've really wanted to talk about for a little while now. And put it online, get it off my chest, and basically be done with it. So we'll be talking a little bit in terms of all of this stuff that we cover today. So we'll be talking music, we'll be talking F1, we'll be talking NHL, we'll be talking a little bit about gaming stuff as well. It's gonna be kind of a varied talk today. While things are a little bit quiet, I'm going to take the time to just bring up a few things. I know that don't do a heck of a lot that's considered mainstream or considered, you know, what will make me popular, but this is a passion project, and I really appreciate the support. I really appreciate everybody tuning in, and I would like it if you guys consider just taking a look at what I have to offer, or what I would like to see to make my stream better. The first would be my Throne link there, which again would be throne.me/thedreamingflame, and then my Ko-fi link which will probably post twice. Yes, which would be co-fi.com/thedreamingflame. I just want to make everything here better for you guys, and when I do start picking up and what have you, I want to make it so it's as good as possible. But not only do I want to do good for the stream. What did I oh, for fuck's sakes. Not only do I want to do good by you guys, I also want to do good by myself, and a lot of this stuff will help me make the stream the way that I would like it to be presented. Pardon me. I would also like to talk about my Twitch, what do you call it? Like a charity thing that I've got going on right now, which is through Power Hockey Toronto, which focuses a lot on... Oh, yeah, thank you for that. Focuses a lot on helping kids get involved in, well, I mean, obviously hockey, but more just in sports in general, and, getting involved in activities, which gets them out of the home, which gets them, into community involvement and stuff like that. The main reason that I like Power Hockey Toronto is they also have support for children with disabilities, and they do have a focus on one particular disability, which would be cerebral palsy, which I find doesn't get really a whole lot of mainstream attention, and as such doesn't get a whole lot of sponsorship. So if you could at least check it out, and if you want to support it, I would appreciate it. If you want to pass it on to people who you think would really support the cause, then please, by all means. Thank you for the reminder, Star. I forgot I even have my pop around. Oof. Alright. That one's done. Alright. My God, my spelling skills, Jesus, man. So it's Commander 2021. Yeah, this is more... You can always tell when I make a deck if I'm adjusting a pre-constructed Commander deck as opposed to when I make one myself. The determination is usually because most of the cards in it, when it's pre-constructed, are worth like next to nothing. Not to say that I make like super expensive decks or anything. It's just to say that they're more expensive when I make them myself, ideally. Oblation, not oblaton. You idiot. Chat is holding up well. Combat calligrapher. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna have a whole lot of super valuable cards in this. Teysa might be worth something. Teysa, Envoy of Ghosts. Nope, not worth just over a dime. Necropolis Regent, what about you? You are there and there. Singer, the Dark Baron. You know, say what you want about Wizards of the Coast, or say what you want about Magic in general. They know how to name some of these cards. Like, really. This is 149. And not really worth anything. Probably in there for flavor. Notice I put that one in there. Maybe even just functionality. Just because the card is functional doesn't mean it's necessarily valuable. Sometimes, if it's just reprinted a lot and it's widely available, it'll still be worthless. Unless somebody goes and buys them all up, which is a known investor tactic. Otter and this one is Commander 21 as well. And promise of loyalty. I'm gonna put most of these back. Yeah. Alright. Alright, this one is a fun deck. I don't think there's going to be really anything worth anything in here, but we will check regardless. That Fires of Invention might be worth something. Leave me alone, spammers. Don't care. I truly don't. That probably isn't worth anything, but things change. Wait, Burrow's Charm might be worth something. I doubt it, but could be, could be. This was not meant to be a deck that was worth anything. This was really a deck that I bought to have fun with. But in order to have the fun, there were some valuable cards that went into this because of function. The whole purpose of this deck, and I love it for it, is literally, so there's this card called Fling. Why is this a rare? Okay. There's this card called Fling, which basically causes you to sacrifice one of your creatures, and then you deal damage to target whatever, based on oh god, what is it? Based on the power or toughness of the creature you sacrificed. And it's not considered good because 90% of the time the cards are like sorcery speed that are like that, but Fling in particular is instant speed, so you could do it as a combat trick, you could do it in defense of yourself or what have you, and you just you team it up with cards that buff up your creatures, or cards that steal creatures from your opponents or something like that. It's not really, like I said, it's not really like a turbo successful deck, or it's not a meta deck by any chance or any measure of the imagination, but it's fun. I do it specifically for the look on someone's face when you steal somebody's win condition and then sacrifice it to deal damage to them. I've done it a few times and it is so funny. Oh my goodness. Oh, I don't even know why I set this aside. This isn't even a valuable card. But we shall see, I guess, because I could be wrong. Kind of wrong. Not like super valuable, but more than I thought. Alright, this is... I don't think this is worth anything either, but I have been wrong before. It is not valuable. Boo. Alright. Let's see what we got here. Plane chase card. That'll be fun. Okay, yeah, nope. And one of the original, oh goodness, one of my favorites, Lightning Bolt. This is like one of the OG Lightning Bolts too. So let's see, revised. I think that's what this is. A revised 3rd edition Lightning Bolt. It's still only worth a couple of bucks. It's kind of disappointing, but expected. Zerda, which is also just a kind of in here because yeah, that's worth a buck. That's about expected. Sarah Avatar, something that just goes big and early game could knock somebody right out. So here's an example. So in a game of Commander, each player starts out with 40 life. No ifs, ands, or buts. Now, the whole idea of the deck is to sacrifice your creatures, deal damage to face, right? Well, we have a creature here that says its power and toughness are each equal to your life total. And then if it's put into a graveyard from anywhere, shuffle it into its owner's library. So the whole idea is for you to play this at whatever cost it might be. I've got a couple of cards that makes this card cheaper to cast, but when you do cast it, ideally, your life total is going to be 40. It comes out as a 40-40 for, I think its initial cost value is like 7 mana or something like that. And then you just fling it right away, essentially removing somebody from the game. It's not something that's really expected because it's really slow and it's not very cost effective. So people are just, when it does happen, people are just like, what? This deck seems so unassuming. How are you so aggressive right now? So I'm not really expecting a whole lot of value out of this deck for the reasons that I talked about. Kari Zev's expertise. And it doesn't, like I said, the part of this deck's effectiveness is to not just sacrifice your creatures, but also take other people's creatures as well, because there are cards that allow you to do that. So again, watch the look on somebody's face when you take somebody's win condition and then essentially smack them in the face with it. So not only do they lose it as an effective removal, but they also get hit at the same time. Oh, that's cool. It's a card I didn't realize they reprinted. It's Phyrexian Rebirth. That's still not worth nothing. Crap. 2017. Alright. Okay. I'm cool with that. Boros Charm. I really don't think this is... Yeah, they got reprinted a bunch after this, so... Where is Magic 25th anniversary? Where are ya? You're down here somewhere. There you are. When this version of the card, okay, it's still $3 at uncommon. That's still really good. I mean, it's not super expensive, but $3 for an uncommon is not cheap. um, when that particular printing of it came out. Kind of a different story. Promos, foil. Let's see if Dictate of the Twin Gods. Nope. Still not worth nothing. Worth less than I paid for it, but I didn't pay a ton for it, so, you know. This is original printing, Italy. So we're gonna go and let's see. That's not foil, so let's just do that. I don't think Italy's gonna be worth anything either. Yeah, it's not. Scuttling Doom Engine is fun, but I don't think it's worth anything either. This is just fun because it's a 6/6 that when it dies, it deals 6 damage to target opponent. So essentially, if we're doing fling with this, you deal 12 as opposed to 6 damage. It's good times. Again, functional in this deck, but not necessarily worth anything. Yeah, 20 cents. Oof. Fires of Invention was banned in certain formats, so I think that might be why it's not worth anything, but we shall see. This is 125. This is not the showcase version. Yeah, it's not worth anything. Once a card is deemed not good for, like, eternal formats, and it's really only seen as good for, like, how to put this? Like, once it's seen as not good for, or banned in certain formats, all the other formats that would use it is not really, it becomes less valuable as such. And Standard is one of them, and I'm pretty sure it was banned from Standard. It's a very good card, at least in certain capacities. Alright, I will be right back. I'm going to go put some stuff away, and then we'll get to talking about other stuff. So give me like maybe 2 minutes, and I'll be right back. Hello, folks. Sorry about earlier. Trying to mute this thing, and I ended up knocking over uh, the mic as well as a few other things. So that's all fixed now. Everything's put away. And we are all set to go. So, just to reiterate, I mean, I went a half an hour later than I was expecting. But things are never going as they should, especially when it's a brand new segment and I'm easing into things with something that is really going to be a one-off. So yeah, moving right on from here, I guess. We can go ahead and close this. We can close this, and we can close this. So we'll get the easy and less opinionated stuff out of the way first. So first on the docket here, number one. So talking about F1, something that my expertise isn't exactly wild on, because I've not been a long time fan, relatively speaking. I've really only been a fan for as long as I've been with my partner Star, and she got me into it, and even then my entertainment value on it has been heightened by the races themselves. It seems like the in between the races stuff and the behind the scenes stuff and the stuff with a fan base is just, oh my god, it's ridiculous. But anyways, the big thing that people are talking about as far as that's concerned right now is everybody's up in a tizzy by something that was started in the Saudi Arabian GP, where basically Fernando Alonso was handed a 10-second time penalty, which moved him from third to fourth. And the reason that in an isolated place, why it was a big deal, is because that was his 100th podium. And he's been racing for a while, as you might imagine. So seeing him knocked off his 100th was a big deal, and a lot of people caused a big fuss over it. And his time penalty was basically overturned. So he didn't have to knock 10 seconds off of his finish time, which was great. And the basis for this is basically what's called the team principal of Fernando Alonso's team went to the stewards of F1 and said, hey, look, here's the proof that we're publicly releasing of all of these times with this particular rule that you punished my racer on, where you've been classically inconsistent, and there's been tons of instances where you've let this go, let my driver go with it. The stewards, probably embarrassed to hell, basically reneged on that penalty. Now, if that's all that was, it would be probably forgotten by now. But this kicked up fervor amongst the Lewis Hamilton fans, who, if you followed F1 at all, will still gloriously tell you, or gloriously, they will still sit you down and lecture to you about for hours about how Lewis Hamilton was robbed of his championship through a controversial call that was made a couple of years back. And saying, well, if you reneged on Fernando Alonso because you were embarrassed, why don't you renege on this? And that's been a thing. I'm not particularly wearing a tinfoil hat as far as that particular situation is concerned. Do I think that the that particular race in that particular call that everybody's kicked, like everybody's out of sorts with. Do I think that call was on the money? I don't really know. If I'm being completely honest with you, the guy that I support, or at least supported, he ended up winning the race. He ended up winning the championship as a result, so I was happy with the results. But at the end of the day, did I know enough about that kind of stuff to really say, hey, look, they made the right call? No, not really. It seems like it was a bad call, but at the same time, in that same race, they missed like 2 or 3 other calls, and 2 of them didn't even have anything to do with Lewis or Max. And then earlier in that season, people seemed to really sleep on a lot of other stuff that the stewards seemed to have missed. And some of that stuff favored Lewis. So it's if you're going to hate anybody for anything, it's not like F1 has it out for Lewis Hamilton, because if they had it out for Lewis Hamilton, they would have never let him win a championship in the first place. If they have the power to do it now, they had the power to do it then. And it's very clear that if they used to at least favor anybody, they used to favor Ferrari. So, I mean, it's just, I don't know, man. I'm not of the mind where, let's say, I'm not of the mind where I think that there's some kind of wild conspiracy out there. I think that the FIA and the stewards just have a lot of self-important people in them that just can't accept accountability at the end of the day. So when things go wrong and they have to go to bat for a solution to the problems, they would much rather point fingers elsewhere than do anything else. But that's not what people want to hear, I guess. I don't know. Regardless, that's that situation. And again, I don't really know a whole lot about those situations to really understand if much of the stuff is the right call. It always just, the situation just kind of reeks of just mismanagement, I guess. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm right. I don't know. I feel like I'll get comments on this. But regardless, I guess we'll see. I mean, the people who are really high on their horse about the Abu Dhabi thing haven't shut up at all in the last couple of years. So this just heightened them, and I don't think there's really a time where they're ever going to shut up. Because honestly, it's either they're bitching about Max, or they're bitching about Fernando, or they're bitching about the FIA, or they're bitching about the rules kind of not seeming consistent, and it all just boils down to them just wanting Lewis to do better. Yeah. I've heard a lot about that stuff, actually, especially lately, because now people are comparing racers to other racers in terms of snubbed circumstances. And I was not a fan way back when, so I don't even know the legitimacy of half of this stuff, so I don't get involved really. And another reason why I don't get involved is like 95% of these discussions that happen, especially on Twitter, just devolve. They devolve into mudslinging and like just really low class bullshit. And I mean, I'm a hockey fan and I'm saying this. It is almost consistent that the like hardcore fans of certain teams, of certain racers, hardcore fans of F1 in general, just, my goodness, like, give me clutch my pearl moments, and that I don't get like that. And I'm just sitting here going, whoa, okay, everybody just needs to pump the brakes, shit getting a little serious, and that's actually why I don't get involved in F1 Twitter anymore. I tried for a while. I think it was last season or the season before, and I got too up into it, and it was actually ruining races for me. And it was like, nope, you know what? I'm good. I am done, and I am finished, and we are good with this. So that's that. But yeah, so I am anxious to see the next race, and I'm anxious to be done with this, so that way I guess the fans have something different to bitch about. But yeah, so next week we can go ahead and close that, thank God. On to another subject that I have to talk about as a hockey fan, and I don't want to talk about, but I feel as though I have no choice as somebody who is a hockey fan and is a person and who is living in the current year. So I have, and I don't want to say it's a problem, because I don't really think it's a problem. I idolize certain players. I don't do it very often with regards to the NHL or the international hockey or just hockey in general. I don't idolize a lot. I want to say maybe one player that I would consider myself idolizing, and anybody who knows me well enough should know who that is. But for those of you who don't know me as well as they do, that player would be Steve Yzerman. And Steve Yzerman is a guy who I stood behind because he was drafted on the year that I was born, 1983. And he almost single-handedly pulled the Detroit Red Wings out of the muck and the mire with the help from Mike Ilitch, and turned that team into a dynasty. Now, here's the problem that I've run into lately, and it's been a problem for a little while, and it's a problem that how to put this? It's a problem that I have had with separate things. So artists, musicians, movie actors and actresses, such things. And I had found a way to disassociate from certain things that those types of people would do by saying separate the art from the artist. When, this big controversy happens with an actor or an actress, for an example, or a musician, I can enjoy the materials myself by saying that there was a lot more people involved in the making of the art than just the artist alone, that I can say, you know what, I don't feel bad supporting the people who put this together, or something along those lines. For example, recently, with the release of, oh goodness, what is that one game? There's Hogwarts Legacy, but there was the other one, and I can't think of the name of it to save my life right now. Oh my god, you know what, I'm gonna look it up just to be certain here. So, Russian propaganda video game will probably tell me exactly what it's. Atomic Heart. See, I knew it. Oh my god, there's articles from NBC News, BBC, and The Guardian about it. Jesus. Alright, so the examples where Atomic Heart and Hogwarts Legacy, where, for example, I can take one person's garbage takes or misunderstood statements, or even just the premise of the project itself being misunderstood and being corrected. I can separate that because there's a lot more than that in those types of projects. The problem with hockey and the NHL with regards to this specifically is that unfortunately you can't really do that, because the players themselves and the coaching staff and the people on the ice essentially are the game. You can't really just take a person's takes out of the game, because then you're taking one player essentially out of the game. Sometimes these people are vital pieces. You can't just, remove somebody that you don't like, essentially, or remove an opinion that you don't like. And there had always been players that have hot takes or just garbage people. There's always been these people, but you've always kind of expected it of them. I mean, even like guys like Marty McSorley, Sean Avery, even guys now like Brad Marchand, and I'm trying to think of other just absolute trash types of pay, like Tony D'Angelo, and even then he's kind of ramped it down lately, but you kind of expect it of them because they make no apologies about who they are or what they're about, and they don't always get up on a soapbox about their shit. Brad Marchand notwithstanding as far as that's concerned, because that guy will bark as loudly as he can, or squeak in the case of him being a rat. You heard it. But the whole point is that that's their character, and it being expected of them doesn't make it better. But when you have a situation where you have a person who's held in high regard, and the person that I'm going to speak about first is when you hold somebody in high regard, or you completely misrepresent them entirely because of how their character appears and how they've held themselves in a certain point. When that all breaks down, in the first case of Carey Price, it blows your mind, and it just I just have no idea. Like, when he came down from, when he had his problems with I think it was substance abuse, when he had his last days with Montreal Canadiens, and he went into that rehab program to deal with that and mental health issues, I believe. Everybody was heartbroken. They were like, oh my god, this guy needs his help. He needs to, get back on the wagon, so to speak, and get his life right. Nobody understood that he was going through so much, and he always seemed like such a nice guy, and he always seemed very steadfast and stoic, and just he really loved the game of hockey. And then the moment he came back, turns out he was plagued by, I think it was injuries or something like that, and he never really got to play again in the NHL after that point. And then the moment he stepped down, before he announced a retirement or anything like that, he started talking about gun regulations in Canada. And it was one bill that passed specifically that changed the definition of what an assault rifle is. And he decided to champion this. Not the bill itself or its passing, but he was against it. And having him posing with guns, and he's got this big diatribe on his Instagram about it. And it was just the takes that he said specifically in this post. And I'm sitting here going, this is the same Carey Price that I've been hearing about and watching and hoping for however many years. This is the same guy? There's no fucking way. And you shake your head, because it's like, how did I miss this? And you can't really take a guy like Carey Price on the Montreal Canadiens. He basically was holding the team on his back. You can't just say, well, okay, I can enjoy hockey without Carey Price, because if you're watching a Montreal Canadiens game, you're going to hear from Carey Price. You're going to see Carey Price. You're going to know that he's there. You're going to know that he's putting his personality, his heart, his mind into everything he's doing. He's going to be a vital part of every Canadiens game. You know, there's no distance about it. You're right there, and especially if you're in the stands and you're watching the game or you're buying the merchandise, you know, yeah, sure, the profits don't go directly to him, mind you, in the case of merchandise, but at the end of the day, it's a vital part. You can't just remove Carey Price from the game, even though he kind of removed himself. That's not the point. Moving on, that's like the example case, so that's like the main point that I'm driving at, but the actual person that I wanted to talk about was James Reimer. And James Reimer came out of left field, and he joined a trend that's been forming recently. And the trend has been that since I think it's just been this season, but it might have been last season too. It started with this guy, Ivan Provorov, who decided to not wear the LGBTQIA plus Pride Night jerseys during warm-up. And I think he cited something about ethnic or nationalistic mentalities. And while nobody was forcing him to do so, he got absolutely lambasted in the media over it. And I'm pretty sure there was another guy or team or something like that prior to James Reimer doing the exact same thing, they had caught fire as well for not participating in Pride Night warm-ups. Or, well, they're participating, but they're not wearing the Pride Night jerseys, right? So that became more of a thing until it seemed to like hit turbo hell now that James Reimer has done it, because James Reimer has claimed when he did it, a guy who you'd never would have thought, like Ivan Provorov, okay, whatever, the guy's Russian, all right? Maybe, look at what's happening in the country right now. Do you really think that they are caring about human rights as much in the government? No, not really. So you got a nationalistic guy who's probably a little bit isolationist. Yeah, alright, fine, whatever. Ivan Provorov, go to hell, go away. But then you get a guy like James Reimer, who I've not really, like, held on high like Carey Price, but I never really, like, thought that he was, like, some kind of Christian fundamentalist either. He never really gave me the vibe. That said, I'm not really, like, super following the guy either, but I didn't think he was a bad dude, and I didn't really read him as like a Bible thumper either. But anyways, he recently made the choice not to wear the Pride Night jersey during warm-up during one of his games, and he decided to do that on the basis of his religion. And a lot of people are taking issue with that, and go ahead, take issue, but some of these people are missing the point entirely, thinking that the guy's being a hypocrite, but then now it's emboldening some people to do the same thing in the NHL. And I don't know, man. Like, you know what? This reminds me a lot of when some people say, you know, start touting about the freedom of speech, but then bitch when other people also have the freedom to criticize. I see two sides of this. The reason that kind of stuff exists, and when I say stuff, I mean like the Pride Night warm-up jerseys, and that being a thing at all, is the same reason that, say for example, the military appreciation night jerseys exist, or say for example some of the other stuff. I think there was a couple of teams who did First Nations stuff. I think they had some of them, so like Calgary, I think Edmonton, I think Winnipeg had warm-up jerseys that had like neat little First Nations designs on them, which were really cool. I'm 100% about this, by the by, just to put that out there. I want to be very clear on this, and I think the two sides on this are it all, if you don't support, like, idealistically what if you idealistically don't support what the Pride game, or the Pride Night jerseys are about, or any warm-up jerseys that are alternate, let's say they represent something that you idealistically are conflicted about, are you gonna die on that hill? Is that really worth dying on a hill about? Like, legitimately. Are you willing to die on that hill? Why? It is just as easy to preserve your career and preserve your, towing that line for your company that you work for, because they work for the team. That work just happens to be playing a sport. You work for a team who in turn works for the league, and they are both telling you to do this thing. You don't have to, but everybody's going to look at you different for doing it. It might hurt your chances with a whole bunch of stuff, because let's face it, everybody in the team, everybody in the league, they're all human beings. They're not machines. And while you have the free choice, the freedom to do whatever the hell you want, so long as your contract tells you this is what you're permitted, but at the end of the day, you're not free from criticism. And as such, if you're going to die on the hill of, I'm free to say this, but I don't like when I'm criticized, then just wear the damn things. That's the one side. It's just easy enough to not deal with the criticism if you just wear the fucking jerseys. Bottom line. And this is not something to create such a fervor over. There are things that are actually happening that affect everybody. And I'm not talking about, I'm losing my human rights to express my religious freedoms and so on and so on. No. I'm talking about people are dying on the fucking streets right now. I'm talking about people can't find places to live. Right now in this country, in Canada, people are struggling with the government saying that we realize it's hard for you to pay for groceries and utilities right now, but we are doing absolutely nothing real to help you with that. That is real shit that's happening, that's affecting people. It's not idealistic. It's not like vague. It's not like kind of sort of type shit. No. These are things that are actually happening that are affecting people right now. You want to die on a hill because you didn't want to wear a fucking jersey that you think fucking supports and encourages devious fucking sexual behavior? Fuck out of here with that. And if you don't like the criticism, then just wear the fucking jersey and stop being such a dildo about it. Alright? Bottom line. Bottom fucking line. The other situation is that you gotta not look at something like a Pride jersey as encouraging something. Do you think military appreciation jerseys are encouraging people to become sociological murderers? Military personnel? Legitimately, that's a fucking question. Do you think Mr. James Reimer and the Stahl brothers, do you three think that military appreciation jerseys encourage you to enroll in the military? Do you think that? Because if you do, then okay, yeah, you know what? Your stance on Pride Night jerseys, a little bit more understandable. Still crazy, but a little bit more understandable. But if not, then fuck out of here with this. Because you're cherry picking your stances and it's bullshit. It's bottom line bullshit. And I'll even go a little bit further than this and say that honestly, like, pop my tinfoil hat on a little bit on this, but I think shit like this started with Tyler Bertuzzi. And do not get me wrong, but it always takes one to kind of break the water about something. And his thing was being one of the last, being the last person who didn't get a COVID vaccination upon his, what was the thing he said, his personal choices and his health related choices and stuff like that. It just didn't really explain it very well, because it didn't really have to, but he did by not really saying anything. Fucking prick. But anyways, you know, I hope you succeed just as well in Boston as you did in Detroit. I'm sure you will, bud. But anyways, his stance on that and him doing this is my freedom to express without consequence. That's what I'm seeking. I want to express my desires, my needs, without the consequence of the feedback that I'm going to get from other human beings on this. Him putting that out there, I think, encouraged and emboldened this attitude. And I don't like that. And that's part of why I think Tyler Bertuzzi will be a brilliant fit on Boston, because there's a few people on there that have the same mindset, and I don't care for it. You either get freedom of speech, but you also have freedom of consequence. You will be criticized sometimes for what you say, and that is our freedom of speech to respond to yours. That's the bottom line. You don't like it, you either get them both or you get none. That's how it works. The freedom doesn't just work for you. That's not how it works. And a lot of this shit is going to keep going on. It's going to keep going on. And there will eventually be, you know, like, you keep pulling, but the shit's like an elastic. And the moment it lets go, shit's going to snap back. When it's going to happen or how it's going to happen, I don't know. But, James, I will fight every day for your ability to have a choice. I just hate that you made a piss poor choice. Because it is so easy for you to not be a hypocrite about something. It was so easy for you to look at the climate, just basically read the room, and you just didn't. Because you didn't want to. You didn't think. But that's what it comes down to. And unfortunately, you made the wrong choice. And I'm not one here to try and tell you that your ideals are better than their ideals, or their ideals are better than your ideals. It's, you know, freedom of speech, right? I'm not one to try and hold somebody down. But at the same time, I'm of the mind, one of my main mantras is, you do whatever the hell you want as long as it doesn't hurt yourself or others. And unfortunately, some mentalities do hurt other people. And in this particular case, it's going to hurt himself in the long run. And I just don't, he has to know. He has to know that it's going to hurt himself. He just doesn't care. That's why I have a problem with that. Really was hoping I wouldn't spend so much time talking about this, but that's how I feel about that. I kind of went off a couple of times. I'm a little proud of myself without getting too carried away. But yeah, so there's that. The whole not wearing the jersey situation, but I'm really kind of hoping that, this is just a blip on the radar. It only happens a few times and then we move on from it. But if I know these types of people well at all, it won't stop here. And it's kind of sad, but that's what happens, I guess. So next up, because I could be talking about this forever when it talks about ethics and human rights and what have you. The next up, so there was a game that we've been following for quite some time, called The Outbound Ghost. And when I say we, I'm talking about me and Star. And The Outbound Ghost is a game that we got into. It was a suggestion that I think Star came upon, because it looks like Paper Mario. I mean, it's not like the exact same art style, but it is very, very reminiscent of Paper Mario. And it seems to play as an RPG in a very similar fashion, to almost to the point where you can tell that I wouldn't say a spiritual successor, but is very much inspired. And basically what ended up happening was a very, I'll break it down as quickly as I can here, because I think conciseness is very key in these kinds of situations. But basically what ended up happening was the outfit that created the RPG, The Outbound Ghost, is smaller, and they needed a publisher to distribute the game. And the publisher in question is called Digerati. I'm sorry, not Digerati. My bad, sorry. Okay, sorry, no, so it is called Digerati. My bad, I apologize. And basically what ended up happening was, so the devs for The Outbound Ghost created the game and then went to Digerati to promote and publish the game on storefronts like Steam and, the Switch store, whatever it's called, the eShop, I think, and just basically get it out to all the platforms and then advertise, package the game as necessary, what have you. The problem with this is that the publisher put almost zero effort into this distribution and porting, to the point where some versions of the game are practically unplayable, and just pushing these out as quickly as possible and just really kind of manipulating the situation to try and make as much money off of this game as possible, and just really kind of, how to put this, really just made it so that the game was pushed out in a bad state and profiting as much from the situation before it had to be pulled forcefully from these platforms. So basically how it ended up working, how it actually branches out. It says here that how it works is the developer, or the copyright owner in this case, Conradical, was responsible for developing the PC version, so the main version that was developed for Steam, while Digerati would meet the developer's reasonable quality standards for the console ports. Basically, what ended up happening was, or what should happen, is when you develop a game, you should develop a game with your full release schedule in mind. So a lot of times a developer will create a game with a console or a PC release, or even some cases a Mac release or a Linux release in mind, and then port to others. Some games will develop with all of the platforms in mind simultaneously. That doesn't happen very often, but a lot of times you got to go into it with the ports in mind, so that way, you know, with your experience in the field, you'll know how to adapt things to like code and certain problems that consoles have. An example of this is the Switch, and a lot of the games that get ported from other consoles to the Switch, such as, let's say, the Persona games. So recently, 3 FES portable Persona 4 Golden and Persona 5 were all ported to ported to the Switch, which blew some people's minds, but it was possible, but it took a long time. Because there are just classically issues with porting to the Switch, as an example. But as you get experience in development in video games, you come to understand what these problems are, know to expect them, and create your games so that way they're easier to adapt to that platform. Well, these guys, Karatical, don't really have that experience, and as such, they weren't handling the ports. They handed it off to Digerati under the understanding that they would have the knowledge to be able to do this, to be able to take care of it. Well, they just simply didn't. They just took the game that in the condition that it was in Steam and just plunked it on these other platforms. Now, while for a platform like, say, Xbox, the newest one, oh my god, I'm having the Series X, thank you. In the case of the Series X, that might work out better than others, but in the case of like the Switch or the PlayStation, that might not work out so well, especially the Switch. So basically what Conradical is basically accusing Digerati of doing is just basically putting as little effort into porting these games as possible and then profiting from them, and doing this all as quickly as possible, and had misled the developers into believing that the contractual obligations had been fulfilled. Another thing is that apparently, and again I say apparently because these are allegations that have not, as of February 20th, so about a month ago, as of then, apparently the developers have not gotten any royalties from any of the sales from the game that occurred on these ported platforms. So Switch, PlayStations, Xbox, if it was on Xbox, I'm pretty sure it is, and on GOG. None of those platforms have resulted in royalties for the developers. So there's that. Let's see. And the whole thing, I guess the developer, the way that he's going on about this is that he didn't even really care at first about things. It seemed like he just wanted the game out and to have a certain quality, so he wanted the game to be as intended. He was willing to kind of sort things out in regards to all the other stuff, in regards to the way that they're dealing with money and how they're reflected on the platform stores and stuff like that. He was willing to sort that stuff out over time, but the quality of the game ports were his main sticking point. Well, this thing just exploded, and this guy who's head of the team that made this game basically delisted his game. And as such, Digerati has said, well, wait a second, now we're not making money from this anymore. Because the owner of the game basically just took the game down from everything. And Digerati responded by putting the game back up, to which he's delisted it again from Steam, GOG, and I think the game is still available on Epic Games Store as well as consoles, but that's more, I think, because delisting a game from something like, say, the PlayStation Store it's a lot of paperwork, from my understanding. But as opposed to just letting this lie, because honestly, this could have just sat. Digerati, on the other hand, has refuted all these claims and I didn't even see this statement before, but apparently they said they paid all the royalties. So it's mostly about royalties being paid out. Full audits have been presented to the dev team. Let's see here. Comments about the performance of the game have been noted. While the porting is the responsibility of the publisher, it goes without saying that publisher, porting team, and developer need to work together to iron out any bugs so we can provide the game that everyone wants. We asked the dev to help identify bugs or issues. However, they have refused to work with us or communicate with Digerati on any channel. Oh, and then they go to take their own shot. So I'm going to quote what was the statement was from Digerati. It says, in his videos, Conrad also advertises another Kickstarter game when the promises made to the earlier Kickstarter backers of The Outbound Ghost have not yet been honored. Given that Conrad received all the money from Kickstarter for The Outbound Ghost, Conrad has not attempted to work with Digerati to ensure such keys are given to the donors. Nonetheless, Conrad is getting money to start a different game without focusing on his prior funders. Conrad has not attempted to address his prior funders before starting his next venture. Oh boy, this is going to be a fight. This is going to be a great barn burner. Oh shit. So, basically, if you want a rundown of that, basically, I promised to be concise, and now I'm like in it for 10 minutes now. The developer of The Outbound Ghost basically created the game for PC, went to a publisher to have it marketed and ported to other platforms such as PS4, PS5, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch, I believe, as well as some other PC platforms such as Epic Game Stores and GOG. The developer claims that this has been mishandled, that he has not received royalties, that the ports are all just shitty quality. Some of them don't even function. And Digerati, the publisher, responded by going, "You got your money. And as a matter of fact, we tried to work with you about the ports, and you did not help us with our job. There needs to be communication in regards to this," and I do agree to that as somebody who's a coder myself, or used to be at least. There needs to be communication, and there wasn't, and that's why the ports are of the quality that have shown up. And on top of that, it turns out that instead of focusing on this project and getting this situation resolved, you've moved on to the next, where you're still getting money through Kickstarter for that. So basically, Digerati dug their heels in and said, "You are shady, sir. You're trying to get as much money out of this as possible as well." And it is kind of classic in a situation where somebody claims that somebody is doing something. If they dig their heels in enough about it, it might be possible that they themselves are guilty of the thing that they're accusing somebody else of doing. So, weird situation. I mean, it's not so often that an industry style drama ends up happening, and it's not just, video game developer A said this thing about B person, and that thing that was said would have been controversial in any atmosphere, much less in gaming. This one is actually industry specific, and it is a fight. Oh goodness. I'm trying to see if I can find anything updated on this. Let's see. Let's see if there's anything recent about this. Let's say within the last month, shall we? Okay. This looks promising. And it took me to an AliExpress page. Why did it take me to an AliExpress page? That's, Right. That's not a legit thing. So there's really been nothing on the front for the last month. Yeah, it looks like the February 20th was probably the last time we really heard anything about this. So really just exploded in the smoke to settle. The smoke settled, and it doesn't seem like anything really came of it. A lot of people on Reddit are basically saying the handling of both sides are really just piss poor, and I kind of agree. Oh man. Yep. It's one of those situations that just reads as just a shame. The game looked really good. The game looked pretty awesome, and I like supporting indie developers when I get the chance. But at the end of the day, this is one of those situations where there's a way to handle things, and it seems like the publisher and the developer both just turned this into something it didn't need to be. And it's unfortunate. So yeah, I guess that's the end of that. I was kind of thinking there'd be a whole lot more to this. So we're going to double back into hockey, into a subject that developed as of last night, and I have to talk about. Like, I have to talk about. That subject is the subject of Derek Lalonde. And we already saw the mention of him in the chat. Yeah. Derek Lalonde is the current head coach of the Detroit Red Wings, and last night they played a hockey game in which was fairly tight. And when I say fairly tight, I mean first period was all about the Red Wings, second period was all about the Penguins, and the third period was like a tennis match. And the controversy in question that brings Derek Lalonde into the forefront here is that one of the goals that was scored needed to be called back. There's a lot of like, what do you call it? Oh god, there's a lot of stuff that's in the air, not very clear and vague on this. So I'll try and break it down here. Basically, what ended up happening was goal was scored, but not really. So basically, if a goal is scored by you, it's let's say under the goalie or in the goalie's control, and you push the goalie over the line, that's considered goalie interference, or at least in most thought processes anyways, and it's counted no goal. Now, in this particular situation, this particular goal, the puck was sliding horizontally across the line, but it didn't fully cross the line. By the time it did, by the time it was questionable, it had slid underneath the goalie's pads, and it was basically stuck there. It actually was between the goalie's skate and the pad, but it was still not over the line. Well, wouldn't you know it, one of the Pittsburgh players came up and, jabbing at the puck, pushed the goalie's pad behind the line and therefore pushed the puck behind the line. Now, most conventional thought processes would count this as goalie interference. Well, here's the thing. So, first bit, the refs, because the puck was underneath the goalie's pad almost the entire time in question, they had to review the goal to make sure that the puck at all crossed the line. It most certainly did. However, the coach, Derek Lalonde, challenged the goal and said that it was goalie interference because the player, in theory, wasn't playing the puck. He was playing the goaltender, and in pushing the goaltender back, pushed the puck over. Now, again, basically this lit the entire hockey world up that knows anything about the Detroit Red Wings, or knows anything about the Pittsburgh Penguins, or just watches hockey news in general, for two reasons. The first reason being is that most conventional wisdom on this particular type of play is that if you play the goaltender, and there's plenty of examples of this year, much less in hockey period, but in this year in the NHL, if I take my stick and I push the goaltender into the net, and that goaltender is in possession of the puck somehow, and I know either knowingly doing it or should know better than to do it, like, there's no way I can play the puck without pushing the goaltender in some way, shape, or form. That's a no-goal, bottom line. And it's just another case of just really crappy officiating. At the end of the day, just a long string of complaints that a lot of people have with the league in terms of its officiating. And this is just another, red string in that long line of complaints that a lot of people have about the NHL's officiating. It is getting as bad as how it was 1 year, I think 3 or 4 years ago, where people complaining about NFL officiating. But yeah, so after this whole debacle, it was actually called a good goal. So everybody, even Pittsburgh fans were going, wait, what? What is goaltender interference then even? And the second reason this is this is a big deal, is Derek Lalonde, as opposed to just letting this slide, um, absolutely caught fire. He's dropping F-bombs left and right, and he's just calling out the goaltenders, or not the goaltenders, sorry, calling out the refs, and just going absolutely apeshit. And it's great because he's not like Torts, or he's not like some of these coaches who are well known for just absolutely losing their minds. So he didn't go insane. He was angry, he was furious, but he didn't lose his mind. It was like, what is the term, like I don't know, like justifiable rage. And he was just absolutely out of his, like, just so angry. And he got thrown out of the game for the language he used. And while I understand, my position is that if you don't like the clap back from somebody for you doing your job improperly, you should just focus on doing your job properly as opposed to focusing on the clapback that you got. That's where I'm sitting. But I also get that you gotta move forward. Yelling and screaming doesn't make the situation better, but holy shit was I right there with him every step of the way. You can ask Star, I was actually at a fucking loss. Like, for probably a good little bit, like, I was actually stunned. There's been bad calls, and then there's been bad calls of bad calls, and then there's been bad takes. But I swear to God, that call that was made last night, I am actually flabbergasted. That was just, I can't even. But we finished the second period. Okay, we're tied. That's fine. The third period was just absolutely alive with electricity. While plays weren't always being made, the game was so much more livelier, and I probably haven't seen this young version of the Red Wings so absolutely electric. And again, the Detroit Red Wings aren't the most talented team in the NHL, and they haven't been for a while. But this specific version of the team is not the most talented bunch by any stretch of the imagination. But so even if, let's say, they throw it all on the line and they give it all they've got, they're still going to get beat by a lot of teams in the NHL. But this is the most alive I've seen them. That last period of last night's game, that is the most that I've seen them give in a game in a very long time. And I think Derek Lalonde's, like, just absolutely firing off on the refs was everything the team needed to get that energy back into the game and to get that energy back. And I hope they carry it into their next game. I remember last year when Detroit came out of the gates, Detroit was on fire for a bit. They were beating teams they had no business beating, and they were just left and right knocking teams over. And then when it seemed like they were doing really good, then the calls started coming, and my boy Dylan Larkin started facing some of the same crap, and he actually did this year too. But during a game against the Tampa Bay Lightning, not only did he take issue with the referee's calls, he decided he must have made a... I didn't see that picture, as an aside here. I will have to check that out, or if you can send it to me in Messenger, I would appreciate it. But in that game against the Tampa Bay Lightning, instead of letting the refs incense him, instead of letting the game get him down, he decided to take the situation into his own hands. And how did he do that? Well, through that game, the Tampa Bay Lightning had been very physical with the team and had come close to injuring a couple of its key players, or a couple of Detroit's key players. And Larkin, after a while, was getting sick and tired of missed calls, was getting sick and tired of the team just basically taking it on, taking it without any sort of consequence. So he decided, when he got, I think it was like cross-checked or something like that, he turned around and he clotheslined a bitch. Like, he literally laid some guy flat on their ass. Not with a conventional check. No, he laid them out. Not with a punch to the face or any such nonsense. No, he laid them out with a fucking clothesline. He had said, I had had enough of your shit, and I'm done taking it. I will take this penalty. I will take this, whatever it does to the team, whatever it does to the game. People need to know you can't do this. Period. End of story. And he's had that energy for the most part ever since, unless it seems like it's overwhelming or it seems like it's too much. And that thing that Star is talking about is absolutely adorable. I wish I could show you guys. But, so, on that same game last night, there's a little bit of a bitter hockey fan in me that hears that when something like that happens in the game and Detroit gets this energy, part of this energy comes from an unlikely Star. And there was two things I was hoping would happen during that game. The first one being that I was hoping that Jake Waldman would just get us another goal where he wins the game for us in styles on the Penguins like the last time we played the Penguins. And he introduced the NHL world to the gritty, which that's a mixed blessing. But then I was also kind of hoping, because as Star told me last night, it was Lucas Raymond's birthday last night, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, you know what, a game-winning goal from Lucas Raymond would be a great way to top off a birthday celebration. I'd be okay with that. I got neither of those things, but I did get a hat trick from a former Penguin, and that felt amazing. That was so good. And what he decided to do, as Star mentioned, he decided to do something really neat with the 3 pucks he got from that hat trick, which was his eighth of his career. He decided to prop them up, and I'm going to assume they're named after his daughters. Well, I'll get some more context in a second. One hat trick puck per kid for when they wake up before school in the morning. Not sure I could ever thought I could say that. It's really cute. I like that. Oh, that's really cool. So yeah, so like Star mentioned, he gave one to each of his kids so that they would see that when they woke up in the morning. That is so cool. So he actually gave those pucks to his kids. So it's like, it kind of reminds, like, there was a goal that Leon Draisaitl scored not too long ago. I want to say about, like, maybe a week or so ago. And I think it was Steve Dangle that mentioned that, I think it was, like, in one of the hat pick moments, where he called it, because it was like he got roughed up and he got really upset, but instead of doing that, he put the puck in the damn net, and it was like a really sharp angle, and he just stood there and he didn't celebrate, he didn't do anything, he just stared at the goaltender. And Dangle mentioned it was like a quiet anger, and that's almost what it felt like this energy from the game was. It was like we're sick of the shit and we're taking shit into our own hands. We turned a 3-3 bullshit tie into I think it was 6-3 at the end of everything. Like that just, You love to see it. You absolutely love to see it. 7-4, yes, there was an empty netter. 7-4? They scored another on top of that? Yeah, they did. That's right, because it was 4-4 for a bit. I knew they were ahead by 3. I knew that much, at least. Oh, but God, man. Like, what a game. When you get knocked down that much by... And this is... That one play was like the highlight. The missed call, or the incorrect call, let's say, was the highlight of the game. But the game started with all kinds of penalties all over the place. Like, when I say shitty officiating, I'm saying there was shitty officiating all over the place. Like, it was absolutely bonkers. Just crazy with the kind of officiating that was happening in that game. But that was like the tippy top. That was the tippy top. I'm not this guy who says, well, you know, the ice is tilted one way or the other. If I say that, I mean it. But usually it's just like, you just call it out for what it is. It's bad officiating. And a lot of times when it's really bad, it goes against both teams. It's never just one that gets it. And it's, you know, getting onto the subject of officiating, there's another little tinfoil hat I'm going to put on about that. And I don't normally do this, but I saw a comment, and I think it was like either on YouTube or on Twitter today, where somebody had mentioned something in regards to this, because I looked up a lot of stuff on the Derek Lalonde situation, because I was expecting him to have like a sound bite or something to quote or something to repost somewhere, because I absolutely love this guy now. Like, Scotty Bowman level of love as far as head coaches are concerned. Like, good guy Derek, man. You know what? Everybody's been calling him Newsy, and I have absolutely no idea why that is. Maybe I'll look that up later, but anyways, good guy. But I saw this comment wherever it came from, and somebody had mentioned, because I have this belief that over the last, I want to say, maybe 5 years, probably, it was like, I noticed it prior, maybe by a year or so before COVID hit, that officiating has seemed to be getting worse and worse. And it's only been ramping up as time goes on. I have noticed this. Now, given officiating has always been really kind of hit or miss, and it's no secret anymore that referees are engaged just as much in game management as they are in upholding the rules. But if you notice something, and I'm surprised I've missed this because I have feelings on fucking sports betting, but do you not notice that the moment in Canada that sports betting became this thing that you see fucking everywhere, every hockey superstar's talking about? You got commercials with Wayne Gretzky and Connor McDavid. You got Austin Matthews doing commercials. Hell, you've got fucking Mitchell Marner doing commercials about betting in Canada. You've got all kinds. You got Jamie Foxx doing sports betting commercials. You got all kinds of people I ain't even heard of. Sports stars, movie stars, musicians. Like, they're just all over the place. But do you notice that the moment that shit really started taking off, the officiating got worse and worse and worse to the point where it is now, where every single fucking game it's got a controversial missed call or bullshit surrounding officiating? It's almost every fucking game. And if the referees are quiet, people are like, what's up? Something weird's going on. And I've always thought, okay, well, I'm not thought, it's been proven and a fucking ref got fired over it when the guy was on a hot mic and was actively talking to another ref about managing the game, basically saying, well, they scored a goal on that missed call, so we're gonna have to give the other team a power play or something along those lines. He ended up, and he didn't even get fired. He basically was led to retire or some such nonsense. And it's like, it's very clear the league's engaged in some shit that they're ashamed about in regards to that they feel that if it gets exposed and proven and it becomes this big scandal, that the league's just going to lose out on all kinds of profits. And it's right after that, and it's right after that call out, suddenly sports betting takes off, and suddenly this bullshit from the fucking refereeing starts happening. And it's like, oh man, how much of this is the league getting a cut of? How much of this sports betting shit is the league getting a cut of? Because I think that information would be real fucking interesting. Because if they're getting like a smallish to large to maybe even medium-sized cut of some of these profits, oh man, oh yeah, like, I'm not like gonna die on a hill about this one, because I think it's one of those that it's like, it's not even fun to think about, because if it's true, it means the league's a fucking sham. Like, I've had issues with the league, but if that's true, then the NHL is a fucking sham, should go home, and any representation that you think that you stand for is just basically a shame by association. Like, the NHL just needs to wrap shit up and go home. But I don't know. Like, it seems too easy for me to arrive at that conclusion, and it seems too easy for anyone to arrive at that conclusion. But the coincidence is weird. Really fucking weird. And nobody's saying anything. Just seems really strange on the timing. So that's all I'm saying about that. But how many times, and again, as a Red Wings fan, I'm a hockey fan first and foremost, let me be clear about that, but as a Red Wings fan, I can't tell you how many games that I've watched. Like, I can't count on my fingers and toes how many times I've watched a Red Wings game that is on a certain course. And I'm saying for or against the Red Wings. I'm just talking about games in general that involve the Red Wings, that are on a certain course, that the officiating makes a call and shifts the pace of the game entirely. And it's that seems to be the only consistent bit. Like, in matters where, okay, let's take goalie interference out of this. Let's take goalie interference right out of the situation, because apparently the wording on goalie interference is really vague. So I'm not going to hop on that train too much. But let's say, I can't say even with icing, because apparently there's a lot of on-ice judgment for icing too. I'm trying to think of one that's just like clear cut. Offsides. How about that one? That's probably a really good one. So for any non-hockey people who are super confused right now, offsides is when basically a player crosses a blue line before. That's what I'm saying. It's a great example. Crosses the blue line before the puck does. Pretty simple, right? Clear fucking cut. And yet, I can't go a week, and this is a league where you can have 10 plus games in a single night, much less than a week. I cannot go a week without some sort of bullshit about offsides, goal reviews, just like people on the ice confused about offside calls because it should be offsides or it shouldn't be offsides or something along those lines. And it's legitimately, does this happen before this happens? There is no like room for, there's no room for like dissonance there. But it always seems to be that the call on the ice is final. So let's say hypothetically that a play is made and it's considered offside, or better yet, a 2-line pass. I'm not even sure if 2-line passes are called anymore. But let's say an offside happens and the ref makes a bad call. Let's say the play is called offside when it shouldn't have been. Well, see, here's the thing. The play is already stopped. As soon as that ref blows his whistle and he calls offsides, regardless of whether he's right or wrong, the result of that offside continues anyway. There's no sort of repercussion to that ref, and there's no sort of, well, here's sorry, to the team on the offense. There's no kind of, well, here's a consolation for having your play broke up and having a potential play or goal, suddenly stopped. And then the momentum for that team could have suddenly changed. Like, the whole pace of the game can change on something like that happens. And I mean, people have come to expect it because everybody goes into a game now wondering how the refs are going to fuck things up. But, the stuff like that happens, and it's just like what the call on the ice is goes. There's no like people looking in the back going, oh well, okay, this, and nobody even questions an offside until somebody challenges it, and you can't really challenge it until somebody scores a goal. Like it's ridiculous, and the amount like sometimes it's reviewed quite a bit. Because it's like, okay, we're talking about, like, looking at a camera and he's offsides by, like, inches, millimeters even. But sometimes it's clear as day. So not only is the call on the ice wrong, whoever reviewed it was wrong, and whoever in Toronto was initially looking at it was absolutely wrong. And there's just no repercussions. Zero repercussions. And there will be people, in the case of Newsy or Derek Lalonde, my boy, the moment they get angry about it, the moment they try and hold somebody accountable, or if they go into the post-game interview or go to the press and start bitching about it, they get fined. There's no repercussions. None at all. And when is anybody going to sit here and go, no, this is enough? This is why, like I said, the coincidence is too strong. There's absolutely no accountability. There's absolutely no, in the case of offsides, there's zero accountability if they make a wrong call. Absolutely zero. And I'm not saying, take the refs out to center ice and flog them publicly or something like that. But I'm saying, there has to be something to hold the league accountable, to hold the refs accountable, or even to just compensate, a team that might have been affected by an improper call. It doesn't have to even be punishment. It could just be like a, here have a face-off in the offensive zone, or like something along those lines where it's very clearly, definitively challengeable, and then once the challenge has been successfully challenged and the bad call was made, then, but that gets into a separate thing where good old Gary Bettman doesn't want constant challenges all the time and doesn't want stoppages of play, which to my rebuttal to that is, hey Gary, if you don't like challenges stopping plays all the time, how about you just uphold the fucking rules? How's that? How is that? Uphold the rules. And you won't have to worry about that. There are spots where it's really kind of, like I said, on the ice judgment, and the rules are vague for a reason. Like icing, as an example. How does one determine intent of the forechecking team? How does one determine how fast is too fast? You're gonna have to start giving speed guns to the refs? How much distance needs to be placed between players challenging an icing puck? Like that one is very gray area, but there's a reason for that. But you could just ask for refs with better judgment in that case. But something like goalie interference in this particular situation, like that was as clear as day. Every hockey pundit worth his weight in gold knows how that should have went. A lot of fans, and I mean a lot, and a lot of people who aren't even Detroit or Pittsburgh fans have shit to say about this. And it's just, it's mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. But Derek Lalonde drew his line in the sand last night, and good on him for it. I will always, always, always be of the mind where, like I said before, I will fight for your freedom to say what you want and to speak your mind and speak your heart. But be aware of the consequences, and, well, in this particular case, the consequences of him saying what was in his mind and in his heart resulted in not a suspension. He just got thrown out of the game. Oh, Samsonov gets a start tonight. So, good hockey news for a change. Well, not for a change. Detroit won last night. That's always good. But Samsonov getting the start, so that means hopefully he's good to go for the rest of the season. So for those who don't know, in case I have not made this clear, I am a Detroit Red Wings fan as far as the NHL is concerned. My partner Star is a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, and that, as you can imagine, has gone very well. But I mean, it's illustrated so much so that, like, we have, coming into our house, we have a main archway here, and on the left side, I have a Detroit Red Wings, it's not just called a Stanley Cup banner, is it? Because in the stadiums, they have one for each year they've won for most teams, right? Well, some teams call them pennants, some teams call them banners, but I'm saying, like, usually teams in the arenas have one for each year they've won, right? And then banners for every number that they've retired, but they don't have the one that just has all the years on it, right? Well, we have one on the left. It's Detroit Red Wings, has all the Stanley Cup championships we've won. And then on the right side, we have one for the Maple Leafs that looks far better and has the championships that the Maple Leafs have won. Yes, yours is better and looks better and is better and super better. Not because it's a Maple Leafs banner, but rather because it was made better, and I will leave that there. And then in the middle, I just mounted today a thing that we bought at the farmer's market that has the intro to Hockey Night in Canada burned in on it. And it's really cool. And I just put that up yesterday, and it just kind of brings everything together. But yeah, it's... oh yeah, I mean, I joke about the whole competition between the Wings and the Leafs, but I mean, let me just say a couple of things before I go any further. That rivalry was always kind of shaky, mostly because they were in different conferences at the time when Oh yeah, you can't see that in the camera, can't you? Well, just kind of. The end of it. But at the time when I really started paying attention to hockey, the Western Conference was like the conference, and the Leafs were in the Eastern, and the rivalry was always more because it was a thing in this town, and in the city that we live in, generally speaking, you're either a Detroit fan or you're a Toronto fan, or at least that's how it's been. If you watch hockey at all, it's become a little bit more varied in recent years, to the point where that particular factor of things isn't really so big a deal. I mean, they are original 6 teams, but every time there's a Detroit-Toronto game, with a couple of exceptions, it's never really that heated, per se, between the players. It's more heated amongst the fans than anything else. But that being said, now they're on the same... They're both in the East, and there's no hopes of ever getting my dream of the Stanley Cup final with Detroit and Toronto. Of all the Detroit rivalries that we've ever had, honestly, Colorado Avalanche, that's the big one. It's not even really a thing anymore. From that rivalry, we have Detroit has one of those players from that particular Colorado Avalanche team. As our power play coach. So is it split that way because Detroit is the closest team overall and Toronto's the closest team in Canada? I want to say yes. But I think if Toronto was further away, would still apply. Detroit is a proximity thing. I do think that that's the case. Toronto, however, is basically like the darling of the NHL. Among teams in the league, I believe Toronto is the most profitable for ticket sales. It's the most profitable for merchandise, and I think it's more profitable than any other team in some other factors as well. So if you want to talk Toronto being a big team here in this city, I think it would be big here regardless of which factor you'd be considering otherwise. Well, no, I mean, you can say the same thing almost about Montreal Canadiens fans too, though. I mean, it's just being fanatical about your team is not the result of whether they win or lose the playoffs or the Stanley Cup. Yeah, that's pretty much what it boils down to. Yeah, but they also... Okay. So here's another topic that I'm going to get on a box about. The Montreal Canadiens, yes, did recently make the Stanley Cup Finals. It was also during one of the COVID years, in which case all of the Canadian teams were wrapped tightly inside their own little division, and that was to keep teams from flying in and out of Canada to stop the spread of COVID, ideally. And the whole thing there is that the Montreal Canadiens at that time were not the best Canadian team, but they managed to beat Toronto in 7 games in the playoffs, and they then became the best Canadian team, and by that virtue, they made it to the conference finals. They managed another upset and got to the finals, which is why I always say the Stanley Cup playoffs are a different beast than the regular season. But in that particular case, I will die on this hill until my very last day on this planet. that COVID made that possible. Period. End of story. If it was not for COVID, the Montreal Canadiens would have nothing to do with the Stanley Cup final. And the following year, out of our COVID protocols in the NHL, they did not even get close. And they haven't gotten close since. As a matter of fact, I don't even think they're in the playoff running for this year. So, but yeah, now, what was this? You were saying something earlier, Star, about if Hamilton gets a team. You're talking about like GTA Hamilton, right? Has there ever been talks about Hamilton getting a team? I kind of missed that. Really? Like recent talks? Like not like how for a year or two solid that Hamilton is weird in that sense, but that's a different topic for a different day. We're not talking about like how for a couple of years our city was talking about Wayne Gretzky funding a Olympic style arena for the city we live in. This is like, for serious, Hamilton might get a team. I see. I completely forgot about that. Now, is this by virtue of... Wait a second, hold on. Is this by virtue of, like, any team going to the East? Or... like, it just seems weird that Detroit's this weird hinge town. So it'd have to be a team that's east of Detroit, that would go on the east, that would push Detroit back to the west, which seems weird because I didn't really see Detroit as that like median, but I could be wrong. Let's look at the internet. Okay. Yeah, I guess that works out. Well, I just found the new league, the new league-wide thing that I want to happen. And I don't even really care if it's Hamilton. We could get another Quebec City team and that would still happen, right? Like, by what you're saying? Wait, no, that's west, so it'd have to be a team out. Well, we'd just have to throw it out, right? So you're saying if a team showed up in Hamilton, that would happen. So if a team showed up in another touted city, which is Quebec City, that would still happen. I like the sound of that. While I don't care for Quebec City getting anything or Hamilton getting anything for that matter, but I like Detroit going back to the West. Okay. It's interesting. It's definitely something I'll have to think a little bit more about because if I'm being completely and totally honest, that's I want Detroit back in the West. So the whole reason this meant anything, this rivalry meant anything to me personally, is because Detroit's my favorite team, 100%. Has nothing to do about where I live. Has nothing to do about anything here. Steve Yzerman was drafted on the year that I was born, 1983. And Gordie Howe was my favorite player, though that's kind of wavered over the years. Gordie Howe's still my boy, though, regardless of. So at the time that I got really into hockey, Detroit Red Wings was my team. Bottom line. Bar none. They were not great when I first picked them up as my favorite team. They were not good at all. at all. And the rivalry meant something to me because every single person that I knew that knew hockey that wasn't also a Detroit fan was either a Montreal Canadiens fan or a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. And my first initial experience in my home was my mother being a Montreal Canadiens fan. Now, given her interest in hockey was extremely casual, she wasn't the die on a hill type about the Montreal Canadiens. But she was a fan enough. And my being the person that I am, every single person that is the die on the hill type about a team, like, I want to show them up in some way, shape, or form. And unfortunately, Detroit, at the time that I became a fan, was not the type of team to show the Montreal Canadiens up. At the time that I became a fan, which let's say was probably about like maybe 1989, 88-ish, somewhere in there. Like right around the late 80s probably is when I really started watching hockey with at all of any sort, but I didn't really become like a super fan until like early 90s when my parents split and I started watching it with my dad. But at the time that I got involved in watching hockey and becoming a fan of it, Montreal was not to be fucked with. I mean, up until like a certain point in like I want to say the 2000s, they never really were. While they weren't always taking home cups and they weren't always, like making big moves or anything like that, they were never a team to fuck with. So at that time, me as a Red Wings fan trying to shut up a Montreal Canadiens fan was not going to happen. However, as far as the Toronto Maple Leafs were concerned, early on at that time, they weren't a team to fuck with either, but they were still more competitive to a team like the Detroit Red Wings than the Canadiens were. And they had a lot of the things that honestly I cherish in a hockey team at that time too. They were rougher. They were skilled. They had guys that I really liked. So they had the Wendell Clarks and your Doug Gilmours and your Felix Potvins. Oh, my heart. I love Felix Potvin. But, if I wasn't a hardcore Detroit Red Wings fan, and let's say I didn't have that scope on Steve Yzerman the entire time, chances are I probably would have become a Leafs fan. I'll be honest. But that said, the Maple Leafs were just like, it wasn't a rivalry stereotypical sense, it was this is the team that has the most, like, crazy fans, I want to say, and has the most presence here, and they're more competitive to me. So it was like almost like a personal rivalry to me at the time. But, like, it's never been that crazy. We've never had, like, a controversial Stanley Cup series. We've never had, like, somebody got roughed up, and so like a lot of passion or a lot of fighting or any of that stuff. I think the biggest thing that happened through the 90s between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Detroit Red Wings was a fight between Ty Domi and Bob Probert. And that was, oh man, you want to see two men who completely respect each other but also want to beat the shit out of one another? Go on YouTube right now and watch the fight between Bob Probert and Ty Domi. Holy shit. Damn. I am missing something here. Just a minute here. Whoa. But yeah, that fight. That's like the epitome of what you consider a hockey fight. But that doesn't happen anymore, and there's a pretty good reason for it, in my opinion. But yes, that was probably the biggest thing I could consider happened between the Red Wings and the Maple Leafs of that era. It's never really grown. It's really just everybody just kind of presumes that here in this city, you either like Detroit or you like Toronto, and that's not really a thing anymore. I don't think it's a thing. And then, like I said, every time these days Toronto and Detroit have a game, it's either going to be one of two things. It's either going to be boring and Toronto wins, or it's going to be bonkers and it's anybody's game. It's like that one game where there was like 18 goals scored or something like that in total. That was absolutely nuts. That one was just, goaltending was just a afterthought. But yeah, I don't know, man. That's yeah, we almost did after a certain point, because it was like, I think Toronto had at one point like a 3 or 4 goal lead on Detroit, and I'm just like, I'm no longer interested in this. I'm no longer invested in this. And then everybody just started scoring goals. Oh man. Yeah, so anyways, it's I don't think it's as intense. More than the stereotype that, oh my god, it's a couple and one of them likes Detroit, one of them likes Toronto. I appreciate that I have another hardcore hockey fan here with me. And the fact that we can share this sport, and we can share like a ton of other interests, is super awesome to me. Like, super awesome. I would not have it any other way. And honestly, I can think of about like 10 teams that would be a deal breaker. And you know what? Anymore, Toronto is not one of them. And I don't think it's ever going to get so heated in here where we're going to have a rivalry that will cause like issues. Like if one of us was like a Boston fan, I think that would be a problem. If she ended up being like a I can't even think of another team that I absolutely hate. I'm trying to think. I think a Habs fandom would really put me off, but only if it was like one of those hardcore, back in my day, Habs fans. No, you know what? We don't even need to do that. If I become a Boston fan, I want you to throw me off the roof of our house. Like, legitimately. I will put that in a letter. And it will no longer be murder, it'll be assisted suicide. So I do not want to be alive. I'm just still trying because, like, if you were talking like mid '90s, then if you're an Avs fan, then no way, fans are butts. But I can't even say that anymore because the Avs team that are around now are not the same team that they were in the mid '90s. So can't even say that. Yeah, I don't think there's any team outside of like Boston that I absolutely hate. I mean, like, Minnesota's close, but that's only because they've got a couple of thugs in them. Yeah, but see, that's not the team now. Like, I'm trying to think current teams that I absolutely, like, despise so much that it'd be a deal breaker in a relationship. So you used to have them. Yeah, I think Boston is probably one of the only ones. I know there's got to be others because I immediately thought it was like, yeah, obviously there is. I think maybe Chicago, but that depends on what kind of Chicago fan. Like, if we're talking about like in Ed Belfour's days, if you were into the Blackhawks then I'd be like, okay, cool. Maybe you come from Chicago. Maybe you're kind of, like... And even then, you're like, okay, were you a Belfour fan or were you in it for Roenick? Because if you were in it for Roenick, I'm still not really cool with you. Because I don't like Jeremy Roenick. I mean, I think he was a skill player. I think he was cool on the ice, but off the ice, he just needs to shut his mouth and sit down most days. I think there's days that I can tolerate the Caps, but other days, I think if the Washington Capitals just dissolved into nothingness, I would not miss them. I still don't think that qualifies as hate, though. Oh, yeah. No, like, Washington Capitals just... Pittsburgh? See, that's the thing. I used to actually really like Pittsburgh as the Penguins. I used to really like that team. It's problematic for me because I don't like current Pittsburgh at all. But I can't say I hate them. I just really don't like Malkin. I really don't like Crosby. There's another guy on Pittsburgh, I think a defenseman, that I just really don't like. I used to not like Tristan Jarry, but honestly, these days I could really care less. They're annoying more than anything else. I can't say annoying is worth hate. I think the closest that comes to it is Chicago, honestly. And that's like across the board. I'm actually going to look up like the entire 32 team roster. NHL teams. Let's take a look. Yeah, honestly, there's not like there's players that kick up some ire for me, but teams as a whole, I really think you're right. But at the end of the day, like across the board, Nintendo, fuck, Chicago has had this weird like on again, off again rivalry with Detroit. Is again another like original six team. The league has really pushed Chicago on Detroit in several seasons, where they've tried to push a rivalry between Detroit and Chicago, and in some points it's actually worked, because for the longest time there was a lot of people on both teams that would rough each other up. So it kind of existed, but I honestly just, for the longest time since 2009, any opportunity to take Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane down a rung was a good day. Who was the other guy? There was a goaltender that was a big deal on Chicago too. I don't know, man. I think you're right. Boston is really the only one that kind of qualifies as like I just don't like anything to do with them right at this very moment. I don't know anything about their coaching staff. Most of their really good players I'm like on. Like David Pastrnak, good player, awesome goal scorer. He is a like bona fide star quality player. Who's his other line mate that isn't Marchand? Who's the other guy? Bergeron. Patrice Bergeron. He's okay too. I like him. There's a few guys on there that are like, I don't mind them as middle six players, but everything surrounding that I can do without. I think that the goalie tandem on Boston is much better than they have been, both as people and as a goalie tandem. Jeremy Swayman, I think his name is. And the other guy they've got playing in Boston, like I think it's Linus Ullmark. They're all right. Like his people, I don't mind them. They're better than the old tandem. I'll tell you that right now. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know, man. We don't really have rivalries the same way that we used to, I don't think. And I think a lot of that is because the games are so micromanaged now that by the time something kicks up, it's dissolved before it even is allowed to get too heightened. It's really just like a classroom where bullies are just, trying to get under somebody's skin so that way they get themselves in trouble or something along those lines, and that's not fun. That's not fun for anyone. Yeah, that's. Ooh, man, I went on that last hockey bit more than anything else. You know what? Honestly, I think there's a lot of teams that like I talked a little bit of smack about the Capitals, and if they just went away, I'd be okay with that. But I mean, where would they, like, they wouldn't just go anywhere. They wouldn't just leave Washington or disappear. They're making way too much money for that city than to just go away, which is unfortunate. But I don't even know where they would go to. I'm just trying to think of like teams that would be in a similar situation. think there were some talks about like what to do with Arizona, but Gary Bettman seems really hard set on keeping the Coyotes in Arizona and keeping the Coyotes in their current situation. And that, you want to talk suspicious stuff, that Coyotes staying in Arizona seems to be really, really strange, but it's neither here nor there. But yeah, I guess that kind of about time to wrap things up, because I got the kitchen prepped, or well, no, it's all right. I have to get things a little bit sorted. I cleaned most of everything up magic wise earlier. Oh. See, the thing is that I was talking and then the chat got involved, and I kept going and I kept going, and that's what happens. That's why I like doing these as streams, not just me talking into the atmosphere. That's why most podcasts have like multiple people. Yes, anywho, I think I should really put a pin in it here and call it a day, and yeah, that's about that. So thank you all for riding on this experiment. If you are watching on Twitch or you're checking this out on VOD, please consider sending me a subscription. If you don't follow me already, please, I would appreciate it if you do. Think about tossing me some bits if you get around to it at some point. And if you're watching me on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe. And if you do subscribe, make sure to hit that bell, so that way when we do post content on our channel, you get notified. Again, I'd like to point all of our Twitch viewers to Power Hockey Toronto. It's a charity I'm running on Twitch for them. If you're interested in the charity, please check them out. I gotta remember cameras over here. I'm looking at my mic. And all that fun stuff. I will throw some links up to some other stuff that you can do to support the stream. We have Throne gifts here, which again will be just throne.me/the Dreaming Flame, in case you can't see it in the chat there. And Ko-fi, which would be ko-fi.com/the Dreaming Flame. The former being you can contribute towards stuff that we can use for the stream, or upgrade certain things that we have here for the stream. The last bit is the best way to directly donate towards us, which would help better our lives or help better the stream. So if you want to help us out, that would be the best, most direct way to do so. Other than that, I guess that just about wraps it up. So thanks for tuning in, wherever it is you're tuning in, and hopefully you'll have a wonderful day. Take care. Thanks for tuning in, and be well.